Okay, so in the last video, I gave you a super high level about what wallets were. This video, I really want to go a little bit deeper into that and actually give you some helpful information as to what types of different wallets there are and what type of wallet might be right for you. Okay, so choosing a Bitcoin wallet. I think this is one of the first questions that people who have decided to buy some Bitcoin, buy some cryptocurrency, the first question they Google, the first question they're asking themselves. It's a very reasonable question to be asking. There's a lot of different wallets, there's a lot of different types of wallets, and there's a lot of people with opinions about what types of wallet you ought to use. You could open up an account at Coinbase, you can open up an account at Robinhood, Exodus, Mycelium, Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin Core specifically, Blockstream Green, Copay, Treasure, Ledger. Okay, there are tons of different options. The question is really what makes a good wallet. We don't want to know what is a best wallet. We want to know what is the standard we are judging a wallet by. I think different types of users have different types of standards that they're setting. So if you watched the last video, this is what I talked about. I talked about how all of this is being managed by a wallet. You have this very large number, or your seed. You have this word list that's created from the seed. This is essentially, a representation of the entropy or the randomness that's in the number, just carried over into human readable words. That same number, it creates your private key. That private key is then correspondent to your public key, and then your public key has a series of addresses associated with it. The main question when we're talking about what type of wallet you might want to choose is, do you trust yourself to store this data? Okay, and Bitcoin can be a scary thing at times. Bitcoin can be a scary thing at times. It's important that if you are going to get into Bitcoin, that you understand that it is a huge responsibility to start taking control of your own finances. You're taking ownership of the security of your funds directly, right? It's as if you didn't have a bank account anymore and you just keep it all in your house. You need some sort of organizational system for that. You're taking control over your own Bitcoins. But when most people decide to buy Bitcoin, they're doing it where? Off of an exchange. An exchange is going to provide the service of storing those Bitcoin on your behalf, but there are risks associated with them doing that, okay? So the first split that I want to bring our attention to is custodial versus non-custodial. Are you managing your own private keys or are you not? If you're telling grandma to buy Bitcoins, is she managing her own private keys, or is Coinbase doing it for her, right? So what are the risks associated with not having your own private keys? Well, because there are no government bailouts in the world of Bitcoin, which is both a blessing and a curse, it means that if the person you've entrusted your Bitcoins to does a poor job of taking care of those keys, then you will lose them and there's no recourse for you. There was a really good list compiled by selfkey.org. This would be the topic of a whole nother video, but I mean, there were millions and millions lost in the various exchange hacks. They only documented 49, okay, and I'm sure that wasn't a comprehensive list. The secondary question, if you do choose to manage your own private key, is do you trust your wallet to do the job of holding that private key for you? All right, you have to think that the job of the wallet is to generate the proper random number, which is a huge deal in cryptography. If your wallet can't generate random numbers well, then the entire premise of how, my key is not, I'm not going to accidentally generate the same key as your key is lost. So you really have to trust the wallet you're using. You have to trust that it can generate random numbers appropriately and that it can store your huge number that is your private key for you responsibly. Okay, and the hard part about this and why I'm making this video is when you Google this stuff, the information is so bad. It's so basic, okay? And I want to hopefully give you a more well-rounded understanding of what it is we're doing to qualify a good wallet. So some of the things you'll see is people talk about when they say the different types of wallets. There's desktop wallets, there's mobile wallets, and then there's browser wallets. Sure, okay? I mean, a wallet, think about what a wallet is. A wallet is just software that does the job of storing your private keys. You could also do the job of storing your private keys without a wallet because you could store it in the form of a mnemonic and a password. But obviously, that would get a little redundant. Once you get past one wallet, it would be impossible to manage. So we do need some sort of software to do this for us. I mean, we use accounting software, we're going to need Bitcoin wallet software. The question is not what platform are we going to run this on. The question is, what are we maximizing for? Are we maximizing for privacy? Are we maximizing for security? Are we maximizing for UX? Because if you want a cool user experience, you're going to pay for that insecurity. And maybe in this video, or maybe perhaps in another video, I'll explain why those trade-offs are the way they are. But unfortunately, it's just sort of true. Okay, all of these wallets are categorized as hot storage, meaning that they are connected to the internet. And these are the two main categories of wallets in general, which I think is fairly basic knowledge, right? Hot wallets are connected to the internet, cold wallets are offline and are not connected to the internet. Okay, this is a very simplistic view of wallets. To go one step deeper into this and have a more complete view of the options you have with wallets, we'll add this history lesson here. So the main wallet software, the main Bitcoin software period, is called Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin Core does a lot of things, and most people will recognize it as a full node. You'll see here that I have like all these computers connected in a network in this cute little sketch. And then I have the wallet layer, and then I have this validation layer, and then I have this peer-to-peer network layer, and all of that makes up what we call Bitcoin Core. Okay, so for context, when Bitcoin first came out, there was only one type of user. It was the type of user who downloaded this software. Now the industry is much more complex. So what a full node is actually doing, it's validating every transaction and it's validating every block according to consensus rules. You probably don't want a wallet that's connected to the internet all the time, right? This would be a hot wallet too. And unfortunately, in order to validate every transaction that happens in the whole network, you do sort of have to be online. Running Bitcoin Core has some definite limitations in that you have to be connected to the internet because it does full validation and peer-to-peer relay. So, I mean, you could stop and then connect, but then it's going to have this huge sync time, and it's not convenient, all right? So at the end of the day, this is not a convenient way to be using Bitcoin, and if we want Bitcoin to be used, we want it to be more convenient. All right, so in 2011, mind you that Bitcoin was launched in 2009, right? So in 2011, only a few years after that, Bitcoin did its first scaling into light nodes. What this meant was that a light node could do two things. It was both a wallet and it did partial validation. So instead of validating every transaction in every block, it only validates if your transaction was included in a block. This concept of validation is a new dimension for figuring out what type of wallet you want to use, all right? So it's not just, is this wallet pretty, is this wallet convenient? It's what are the properties that you want to utilize of this network. Not all mobile wallets are light nodes. So a light node is a specific type of mobile wallet that's going to allow you to validate transactions, at least that your transactions were confirmed in a block. This gives you some additional security that you wouldn't get out of simply using a mobile wallet. Okay. There's other things I want to say that I probably want to save for other videos, but I think that's the primary dimension that I want you to consider when you're looking at wallets is not just do I want a hot or cold wallet, but do I want to do validation, full validation, partial validation? Does validation mean anything to me? Should it mean something to me? These are questions to ask yourself. There's also an issue about being open source or closed source. So what I see a lot is people tend to use the term open source as if it was a synonym for security, meaning like, oh, I want to use an open source wallet because that means it's more secure. That is a very flawed premise when you're looking at things, especially like mobile wallets. Just to give you the gist of it, there's your wallet software, and then there's all of the software that your wallet depends on. Okay, that's called a dependency. Developers of wallets will import other libraries in order to have a groundwork to build their app on top of. They'll do this is very common when you want like fancy visual effects, when you want like a nice clean UI. Like most of the people who are building these open source mobile wallets are not creating all of those UI components on their own. Right? They're importing libraries to do that. This becomes a major vulnerability for people who use those wallets because what ends up happening is, you know, by the time the wallet is out there and written, it has like hundreds of dependencies that are all written by other people, all maintained by other people, and that no one's actually keeping track of. The scope is just too large to keep track of it, so we know that they aren't. All right, and what this ends up amounting to is a thing called a dependency hack. But how this attack works is Because the code is open source, a hacker goes to the code and says, oh, look, these are the hundreds of dependencies they're using. I'm going to approach each one of these developers and see if they want me to take over managing it. Because those open source developers, you know, they're busy. They don't have the time to manage all those little packages and whatnot. A hacker takes control of one of these open source projects that he knows one of these wallets is using. He writes some code saying, funnel all these Bitcoins to me, and ta-da! I think there's a lot of value in being open source, and things like, you know, being open source for Bitcoin is definitely a positive thing. Being open source for wallets can end up doing more harm than good. If you want to know the simplest way to have the best security that you can manage, it's going to be to use a hardware wallet. You could use a hardware wallet in conjunction with a privacy wallet. You could use a hardware wallet in conjunction with a full node, but that'll be the topic of a separate video. If you like this video, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, wallets, mental models, you can check out the next video playlist. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.